Hello, everyone. Blake Walker here, and welcome back to our recap show, weekly recap show. I'm obviously your host, Blake Walker. It was a eventful night in high school football as we set the postseason for 5A through A. I'll go through our dome games as well as we go throughout the evening, but I think it's going to be a more laid-back episode here. It's been a long day for me personally on this Friday. I'm still recording this on Friday night. Iowa just lost to UCLA, so I'm very upset about that. And I'll talk about the game I did tonight, but I think we're just going to have a more laid-back approach to tonight's post-game show, I think. Excuse me. I'm just going to talk and see what happens. So, all right, we'll start out with Class 5A, where Iowa City Liberty defeats Ankeny 21-13 is your final score. Shout out Iowa City Liberty. I mean, just a very crazy year. I mean, came in, I don't think a lot of people really thought they would be the favorite by any means. I don't think anyone had them going to the Dome. But a lot of credit to what the Liberty have been able to do. They got home field advantage, which they deserved. And they defeat Ankeny for the second time in a year. I mean, not many teams go out and beat Ankeny twice in 1 year. Ankeny, if you didn't see, Bound posted a thing today. Ankeny had played every single quarterfinal team in Class 5A this season. So they had truly been tested. They bow out at 6-5. Truly one of the better 6-5 teams we've seen. They beat Valley, which we'll talk about Valley in a little bit, but all the credit in the world to Iowa City Liberty. I think back to just a couple of years ago, I mean, they were a quote-unquote 4A team, kind of a 3A team a while. They kind of went back and forth, but was a 4A team. I remember they beat Iowa City High at the Battle of Kinnick, where they played Iowa City High at Kinnick Stadium. And that was kind of like a dang. I mean, this team, I mean, they're pretty good, and they didn't make it in the Class 4A Dome, and then, of course, now they make it in the 5A. So, again, all the credit in the world to Iowa City Liberty. That is a heck of a win. And what a season. What a season for Iowa City Liberty to be able to advance on. And it just shows that, you can jump up, and that's really the first time we've seen a team, obviously, in my opinion, first team that's really jumped up a class and has quickly made a splash. So give all the credit in the world to Iowa City Liberty, because I think a lot of people, when they think about football and the Iowa City schools, you think of City High and you think of City West. So, very impressive. Dowling Catholic defeats Ankeny Centennial 14-10. It came down to a goal line stand. Ankeny Centennial, late in the fourth quarter, about 5 minutes left, had the ball inside the 2-yard line, and 4 straight stops by Dowling's defense win them the game. Just crazy. I mean, just crazy. Shout out to Coach Wilson. I love chatting with him during the week when I get a chance for the Central Iowa Sports Network. I'm really impressed. Dowling has really been the cardiac team this year. They have played so many close games. And in recent memory, it's felt like Dowling hasn't been able to win those games. And now finally they've been able to string a couple together. So give all the credit in the world to the Maroons. I mean, Centennial is a heck of a team. Braden Jackson was one of the best, if not the best, running back that we've seen in the state of Iowa this year. Son of Fred Jackson, former NFL star. But yeah, Dowling Catholic, man. I mean, it wasn't pretty. I mean, there's nothing that really jumps off the page, but a team that has been doubted in terms of defense this year obviously comes out and does that. Considering the first time these two teams met, it was a 41-35 game in overtime that went to the Maroons. It's crazy. And you don't think of Dowling as a underdog, but they technically are because, I mean, they had been shut out of not making the Dome for like 2 years. So, yeah, all the credit in the world to Dowling Catholic there. Probably the biggest not shocker of the night, but Southeast Polk handles Iowa City West 42-15. Both these teams were 6-4 coming into this game. Both these teams had upset their first round game. Southeast Polk, probably the weirdest team, the biggest question mark team in the state. In their last 5 games, on October 10th, they lost to Johnston 34-0. And everyone's like, oh, dang, well, this team probably won't be I mean, obviously all year long, everyone was like, okay, they don't have their starting quarterback. They don't have Abu Sama. Obviously they're 2 years removed from the Caden Proctor era. They lost everybody on their offensive line. It's a bunch of juniors and sophomores. And as the season has gone on, Southeast Polk has just quietly gotten better. They beat Waukee 31-28, lost a overtime thriller to Dowling 35-34, and then they beat Des Moines Lincoln, and then they go out east and beat PV, and then they throttle Iowa City West here 42-15. And it should be known, Holden Hansen has done a really good job at quarterback. He's slotted in as a senior. But their top wide receiver, Sam Zelenovich, from last year, came back, played well this year, but he tore his ACL a couple weeks ago. So he didn't play last week. He didn't play this week. Obviously, I have no stats from this game, so I really don't know how it turned out. But the Rams' defense has clearly started to figure things out. I'm curious to see if they ran the ball well, because that's been an issue. But clearly, they've figured something out. And, at what felt like in the middle of the season as, okay, maybe Southeast Polk probably won't repeat. They might not even make the Dome to go for 4 straight titles has quickly turned into, dang, they might be one of the most well put together teams at this point going into the Dome. Because I truly don't think we have a favorite right now in 5A. But Southeast Polk legit looks like they could go on a run here, as they have been. And maybe 4 straight happens. I give credit to Coach Brad Zelenovich for what he's been able to put together. And then finally, Valley defeats Johnston 38-35. This was an unbelievable football game. I had a chance to call this game on the Central Iowa Sports Network with Hunter Phillips. Valley led 14-0 in the first quarter. Johnston came back, scored 13 in the second, and then they just kept scoring. There were 3 touchdowns in this game by 80 yards or more. Valley had 1. King Coleman ran an 80-yard touchdown run. And then D'Angelo Barku for Johnston had 2 80-yard touchdown runs. Johnston had a punt return for a touchdown. Valley had a kick return for a touchdown. These are 2 of the better defenses in the state, and they really just came out and didn't look like it. But what's really going to be disappointing from this game is, if you want, you can go on the Central Iowa Sports Network and watch this. And probably one of the reasons why I kind of, not somber, but I'm definitely disappointed coming home from calling a game. There was a late portion in this game. Valley had the ball up by 3 with about 5 minutes left, was trying to run out the clock, and they were about at the 50-yard line. And Valley's quarterback, Drake DeGroat, I think it was on second down or first down, got flushed out of the pocket and ran backwards. And as he was running backwards, he lost balance, and he tripped, and he used the ball in his right hand to kind of like catch himself on the ground. And when he did it, when the ball hit the ground, the ball flipped out of his hand and the ball rolled. Well, Johnston hopped on top of it, and the guy, it kind of bounced around, and finally one of Johnston's players came up and ran it back. Well, as he's running it back, the official immediately, who is standing right next to Drake DeGroat, whistles and says he was down. He's down. Obviously, if you're listening, go check it out on YouTube, on the Central Iowa Sports Network Valley and Johnston game. He was not down. He was far from down. He used the ball to go down, and the ball is what popped free. No knee was down. I mean, it was close, yes, but he was nowhere near down. And it cost Johnston the game. It really cost Johnston the game. It was just a really bad call. And I'm one that I like to try to side on the side of officials. I have full respect for the IHSAA, and I know I work close with them in some cases. Obviously, they can't control everything, but I think it was more just they just missed it. They just flat out missed a call, and it was just it was the worst call you could miss, and it took away points from Johnston and probably what could have won them the game. And there were a couple other calls, throughout the game. I think Johnston had 2 big plays called back because of holdings. And obviously holding happens, but there was just a couple times where it just felt like the Dragons were not on the positive side of the other thing. And Coach Woodley was screaming at the officials all night, and maybe that had something to do with it. But I've never seen a coach go through the handshake line and still be yelling at the officials as they're going off the field. So I was happy for Valley. That's now back-to-back games. They've just barely squeaked out wins. But Yeah, I feel terrible for Johnston. I feel absolutely terrible for the Dragons. They played a heck of a football game and come up short. So, yeah, 38-35. So that sets up the Dome for these two teams. Class 5A will take place on Friday, November 15th at 4 o'clock. Valley will face Dowling, and then at 7 o'clock, Southeast Polk will take on Iowa City Liberty. For Valley Dowling, it's going to be amazing. It's going to be a great football game. Dowling won the first time around. I really don't know who's the better team right now. I mean, for 5A all across the board, I really have no idea. I think Valley is obviously squeaked past a couple games here. They have played phenomenal, but it's just they've come close the last 2 weeks to losses, and obviously Dowling held off Centennial. If I had to pick one, I think I'd go Dowling right now, but it's very, very close. And then obviously Southeast Polk and Iowa City Liberty. We keep saying Liberty's going to lose, but by golly, they're just not doing it. They just keep winning, and obviously they've beaten Ankeny, who is one of the better that the CIML has to offer. But Southeast Polk's a different animal right now. And so I think it's going to be a very fun 5A postseason. All right, let's go on to Class 4A. Again, I haven't really had time to look at these scores a ton. I got home at 8 and then watched the Iowa game. Let's go 4A. Pella defeats Gilbert 19-14. Shout out to Coach McKinstry in his final year. The Pella Dutch are back to the Dome. It's been a while. It has been a while. I think 2017, 2018 since Pella last went to the Dome. So that feels crazy to say. What was once an unbelievable dynasty is finally getting back. I'm happy for Coach McKinstry. This is a rematch. Pella and Gilbert literally played a couple weeks ago, back on the 25th. Gilbert won 14-7, and Pella just came out better this time. All season long, Gilbert had Will Hawthorne, who's going to Iowa State. He was like a 2,000-yard rusher, and they didn't have a quarterback. Their main quarterback, I think, got injured in soccer over the spring/summer, and it was either a torn ACL or something, so they didn't have a quarterback, so they didn't pass the ball. I think coming into this game, I think they'd only passed the ball maybe 10 times all year, which for a Class 4A school, that's kind of unbelievable. Their defense showed up. They won close games near the end. Their only loss was to Bondurant. But it looks like it just kind of ran out, and Pella had a good lineup. But the Dutch are fun to watch. I think they're going to be a tough team to beat at the Dome. And congratulations to Coach McKinstry. North Scott goes on the road and defeats Decorah 28-24. Decorah, unfortunately, another team that just got bit with the injury bug. Their starting quarterback tore his ACL with like 2 weeks left to go in the regular season. Decorah has stats in for this game. Tanner Cadell played, I guess, quarterback/running back. Maybe he was their running back and he just played quarterback. I know Decorah was up for quite a bit of this game, and the North Scott rallied back. The Lancers are a very talented team. Lost to Xavier, and I think they might have lost to Waverly Shell Rock. Don't quote me on that, but the Lancers won the state title a couple of years ago against Harlan. Are they the best team that I've ever seen North Scott have? No, but they definitely are a very talented team, and that's a good win. Obviously, again, injuries just stink. They really stink. But great win for North Scott, and just Decorah comes up short after a really, really good season. Lewis Central defeats ADM. This was a classic from my understanding. I think Lewis Central scored with like a minute left. They were leading like 21-6. ADM came all the way back. Lewis Central has obviously been a constant at the Dome the last couple of years. They have just been phenomenal. I mean, they are the team to beat recently at the Unidome. They keep making it. This year, there are a couple ins and outs. You know, they got upset by Norwalk. They had a couple close calls with Winterset and company, but I was very impressed here with Lewis Central. ADM was also one of those teams that, you know, they lost their two top players last year, their running back and their quarterback. And everyone's like, all right, this team's going to take a step back. Well, they didn't take a step back. ADM was a very talented team this year. And unfortunately, their comeback bid falls short, and Lewis Central, once again, is headed to the Unidome. And finally, this was a rematch of last year's quarterfinals, North Polk and Xavier. North Polk undefeated, led by senior quarterback Nathan Feldman, who is an all-around athlete. He can run, he can pass, he is unbelievable. The Comets look like they are the team to beat as they defeat Xavier 35-14. Xavier, very up and down year for the Saints. Couple uncharacteristic losses. They lost that late game to Clear Creek Amana, but then they take care of business against Norwalk. Have to make the trip to North Polk. Not a fun drive by any means. But they're all juniors and sophomores. Like their leading tackler, receiver, quarterback, and runner are all juniors and sophomores. So Xavier will undoubtedly be back. And in my opinion, North Polk is the team to beat in Class 4A. So 4A looks like this at 4 o'clock on November 14th. That's Thursday. Lewis Central will face Pella. That is what feels like a classic matchup. And then at 7 o'clock, North Scott will take on North Polk. So, should be a great game. That's a fun class, Class 4A. All right, Class 3A. Mount Vernon defeats Algona 31-28. I checked in on this game at one point. It was like 22-7, and I think it was 22. It was 22-7 at halftime. Algona led. Mount Vernon on the road comes all the way back and defeats Algona 31-28. Mount Vernon is a fun team. They did not play in a very tough district, but their only loss is to Solon. They do have a win over Benton, which is very good on the resume. And their only loss was Solon, obviously, and they lost by 1.7-6. They're a very talented team. Algona, tell me if you've heard this one before. Starting quarterback Alex Mensky tore his ACL with 2 weeks left to go in the season. It's always late, man. It's always late. You just hate to see it. Alex Mensky tore his ACL. He was 22 touchdowns, no interceptions. He's headed to Iowa State. He was unbelievable. His brother was the backup quarterback, came in and is actually really good as well. But you just had to wonder if Algona had Alex Mensky, would they have made it to the Dome? And now back-to-back years, Algona has fallen short a game before the Dome when it feels like they probably could have been at the Dome. So, a lot of credit to Mount Vernon. The Mustangs are a very talented team. Lost in the title game a couple of years ago to Harlan. So, good to see them back. One team that looks like they are going to be truly at the top of their game. Humboldt defeats Solon 35-3. Solon was a very, very weird team this year. And I mean a very weird team. They lost to Williamsburg. They lost to Benton. They then came back and beat Benton. Just a very weird football team. Had a couple games where the defense would show up, a couple games where the offense just wouldn't. And then you have a Humboldt team that is led by very good athletes, very talented quarterback. And it finally looks like this could be the year for Humboldt to make it. I know they made it to the Dome a couple of years ago. They kind of snuck in. Kind of had an easy path to the postseason, but definitely not easy this time around. The Wildcats are truly one of the best teams. They've played a phenomenal schedule. Their last 4 games are against Algona, Clear Lake, Webster City, Clear Lake. So they've beaten very good competition. In my opinion, seem like the team to beat, you would think. And they take down Solon 35-3. Wahlert Catholic is undefeated. They defeat Independence 24-7. I really don't know a ton about this Wahlert Catholic team. It's felt like they've had a very easy schedule, but not really. They play a couple of teams out east, obviously. They beat Independence twice this year. Obviously tonight. Independence upset Williamsburg last week, so that was a really big win for the Mustangs. Yeah, I don't know. I truly don't know a ton about this Wahlert Catholic team, but have quietly been 11-0. It's hard to quietly go 11-0, but they made it to the Dome a couple years ago. Lost to Williamsburg in 2A, 3A, I want to say. It'd probably be 2A, honestly, now I think about it. But, yeah, good for the Golden Eagles. I think they're going to be a tough team. I'm excited to see them next week. And then finally, Sergeant Bluff Luton defeats Nevada 53-21. Nevada, quietly, a very good year, 8-3 finishing. Nevada led 21-13 at the end of the first quarter, and then that was it. Sergeant Bluff Luton outscored the Cubs 40-0 in the next close quarters. SBL can run the ball better than almost anyone in the state, from what I've heard. I'm excited to watch them this week at the Dome, but haven't played the best competition by any means, but they did have a win over Sioux City East. That's a 5A win. I mean, that's all you need to know about what Sioux City East almost did to Valley last week. So the Warriors look like one of the best teams to beat also. So I think we're in for a great postseason there. Tough loss for the Nevada Cubs. I mean, if they would have made the Dome, it would have been like, dang, of all Nevada teams to make it to the Dome, it was this one. But I just, I feel for Nevada because I think this is the third or fourth straight year that they have lost in this game. And they just haven't been able to make it. So, tough loss for the Cubs. Great job for the Warriors. Your Class 3A postseason will look like this. Wahlert Catholic will take on Sergeant Bluff Luton at 4 o'clock on Saturday, November 16th. And then Mount Vernon will take on Humboldt. And that is at 7 o'clock on Saturday. Class 2A looks like this. PCM defeats Mid Prairie 41-0. Mid Prairie bows out at 7-4. Good season, though, nonetheless, for the Hawks. They struggled to start the year and really put together a nice winning streak. They just ran into a buzzsaw. PCM has been one of the best teams in Class 2A. Have not lost a game, a perfect 11-0. Their defense is truly unbelievable. Is it the easiest schedule or is it the hardest schedule? No, but that's just how their district has played out. Adrian Robbins is one of the top running backs in the state. PCM is just big. Like, they have the size of what seems like a 4A or 5A school. So the Mustangs, who won the state title back in 2018, 2019, somewhere around there, are going to be a real threat. They advance on to the postseason. Class 2A was really just a couple blowouts. It really just wasn't that kind of day. Spirit Lake defeats North Fayette Valley 42-13. North Fayette Valley drops out at 9-2. Spirit Lake 10-1. Couple close games in the postseason. Obviously, Spirit Lake barely hung on against Cherokee Washington 31-27. Spirit Lake's only loss this year was to Algona by like 2 points at the beginning of the year, and obviously we know how good Algona is. The Indians have made it to the state the last couple of years. They've had a group of sophomores that then became juniors, and now they're seniors. Feels like if they're going to do it, this is obviously the year to do it. They get a big win over North Fayette Valley. Van Meter continues to be Van Meter. This is probably, quote-unquote, the worst, quote-unquote, Van Meter team that we've seen in the last couple of years, but they still are just unbelievable. 10-1 record. Their only loss is to Humboldt. Obviously, we know how good Humboldt is. They defeated Anamosa team that, didn't have the hardest district, but Blue Raiders took care of business. And Van Meter gets the job done. 31-0 over the Blue Raiders. Again, who knows about this Van Meter team? We have, the last couple of years, it's been like, okay, I mean, they really are the best team. They're very good, don't get me wrong. I don't know how they compare to the other teams. So I'm very curious to see how that shakes out. But, Van Meter trying to keep that winning streak going. I think they've won 3 straight state titles. So I don't know, man. It's going to be close. And then finally, West Lyon defeats Kemper Catholic 49-14. West Lyon is a juggernaut. I think they're PCM, just a little bit better and a better schedule. That's kind of how it's gone. They defeat Kemper 49-14. West Lyon scored 35 points in the second quarter. It was 42-7 at the halftime break. And Kemper Catholic is no joke, but West Lyon takes care of business. Then the passing category for tonight, they went 5 of 7 for 161 yards. That's crazy. West Lyon is unbelievable. I think they will be the favorite. But as you can see, all 4 of these teams are unbelievable. Class 2A is going to be probably the best tournament, in my opinion. So you take a look at the roster or how these both work. Spirit Lake faces PCM at 10 o'clock on Saturday, and then Van Meter faces West Lyon at 1 o'clock on Saturday. Are you kidding me? Those are 2 of the best games in the entire tournament, and they're back-to-back, and they're in the same class. That's going to be awesome. That is going to be awesome football. Class 1A, Dyke New Hartford defeats South Hardin 36-19. Dyke New Hartford's only loss on the year is Grundy Center. It looks like they're on a collision course to face them once again. Great year for South Hardin. Defeated Emmetsburg to get here to this point. Very sneaky good team. Couple good rushing attack. I know they were pretty big up front. Their only losses are to Dyke New Hartford and Grundy Center. So clearly two best teams on their schedule. They just could not quite get past. The Wolverines are very talented. Their defense is there, and their offense. In recent years, it's been they just had a really good defense. Their offense kind of struggled. Now they have an offense and a defense. So shout out to the Wolverines. Grundy Center defeats Sumner Fredericksburg 35-6. Grundy Center really doesn't seem fair. They finally broke through, won a state title last year. I think either 2 in a row or maybe 1 in a row. I'm not sure. But then everybody off of Grundy Center's roster last year graduated. Like, they lost so many seniors. And then they turn around and they're just as good, if not better than they were last year. With Judge Javarski leading the way at quarterback. I mean, this team is just not fair. They destroyed every single team they faced. Even Dike New Hartford was a 21-7 game. The Grundy Center is just not fair, and should be on their way to winning another state title, and look like they could be on a collision course with Dike New Hartford. Probably the coolest surprise team of the year. Hinton defeats Underwood 37-15. Underwood went on a little bit of a Cinderella run here in the playoffs. They beat Ridgewood and they beat Trainer, but Hinton, who has just really been surprising this year, only losses to Ridgeview. They beat OABCIG twice. They beat AHSTW. They barely hung on against West Sioux to start the postseason. Just a really fun team, and came out swinging here. 37-15 over Underwood. They have a quarterback who runs and passes the ball. Gabe Anderson had 115 yards passing, 121 yards on the ground. That's cool, man. I mean, just awesome. Truly, just awesome to see. Of all teams, Hinton. Of all teams. Shout out to the Hinton Blackhawks for making it. And then finally, another rematch in Class 1A. Iowa City Regina Catholic drops their game to Wilton 21-14. Kind of a weird year for these two teams. I wouldn't say they've played the best schedules by any means, but they did play each other the last week of the regular season, and Regina won 20-8. Wilton came back and said that's not going to happen again. Wilton scores 14 unanswered in the fourth quarter to come back and win. Drew Keith throws for 224 yards and a touchdown, and Owen Hassel runs for 126 yards and 2 touchdowns. Shout out Wilton, man. That is so cool. That is Wilton's first win dating back to 2008 against Regina. That is so cool. They are now 14-1 since 2008 at the beginning of the Bound era against Regina. That's awesome, man. Really happy for Wilton. They're going to be a fun team at the Dome. But to say you can take down Regina, that's pretty cool. So that game, Class 1A, will happen on Friday at 10 o'clock. Wilton will face Grundy Center, and then Hinton will take on Dike New Hartford. Grundy Center and Wilton is at 10 o'clock. Hinton and Dike New Hartford is at 1 o'clock. Wilton, Grundy Center, 10. Hinton, Dike New Hartford, 1. It's getting late, and this is kind of long, but hopefully everyone enjoys a longer episode here. All right, finally, Class A. I can go over 8-player. I will. It happened on Thursday, but I might as well go over it. So, Class A will look like this. ACGC drops their game to Tri-Center 47-20. Tri-Center is on a roll, man. ACGC hadn't lost a game all year long, and I don't think ACGC's ever been to the Dome, but hadn't lost a game all year. Had a couple close games, but have been taking care of business. And Tri-Center has just been the best surprise of the year. This defense is legit. Their offense has a couple weapons. I know their quarterback's just a sophomore. They beat South Central Calhoun 41-0. They beat Riverside 58-13. 1 point they beat Woodbury Central 34-8. I mean, this team is so good. Shout out Tri-Center and the big win over ACGC, who many thought would be the favorite to go to the Dome. Chargers come up short, and the Trojans win 47-20. Cool game. In my opinion, also a shocker. Madrid goes on the road and defeats Lisbon 27-14. Madrid 9-2. If you remember, they made it to the Dome last year, lost in the state title game. Either lost in the state title game or just lost at the Dome. Lisbon was undefeated on the season and just lost their first game. Preston Wicker, Madrid's quarterback, got injured early in the year, came back. I personally had my doubts about this team, but they've clearly figured it out, defensively especially. In their last 5 games, they gave up, or last 6 games, they gave up 0, 6, 8, 6, 0, 14. That's phenomenal. I can tell you that. Lisbon on the other side just didn't play the schedule. I think that was really what cost Lisbon here. Is their schedule wasn't that hard that they weren't really challenged, and they come up short. That's a gut-wrenching loss. But shout out Madrid. St. Ansgar defeats Makokata Valley 44-13. I was on the boat that thought Makokata Valley could win this game. Makokata Valley was a really talented team. Came in at 9-1. St. Ansgar's only loss was to West Hancock. But I should know never to doubt St. Ansgar, especially in Class A. And they kind of scared me. They only beat Wapsie Valley 18-0 in the round previous to this one. But boy, the Saints take it to the Wildcats, 44-13. That's a Makokata Valley team that was barely giving up points all year. I think the most points they gave up in a single game was 16. And then they turn around and give up 44. So shout out St. Ansgar. And then finally, West Hancock defeats Woodbury Central 44-15. West Hancock has been a mainstay at the Unidome in previous years. 44-15. West Hancock only beat MMCRU 28-21 last week. Woodbury Central got past Galen Catholic 21-19. So West Hancock obviously beat St. Ansgar. All things considering, probably could be on a collision course. But yeah, a lot of fun. So your Class A Dome teams will look like this. At 10 o'clock on Thursday, November 14th, Madrid will take on West Hancock. And then at 1 o'clock, Tri-Center will take on St. Ansgar. So it all lines up for a West Hancock-St. Ansgar rematch, which everybody would love to see, considering it was a one-point game the first time they met this year. All right, and finally, 8-player looked like this on Thursday night. Bishop Garrigan defeats Edgewood Colesburg 51-36. Here's the thing about Bishop Garrigan. They didn't lose a single game all year, and once again, they kind of go into the postseason, and you're like, man, I feel like this team, they're good, but are they that good? I mean, yes, they are very good. Bishop Garrigan gave up 22 points in the fourth quarter, so part of me thinks maybe some of that is just resting your starters. But here's the thing about Bishop Garrigan. They are huge. I mean, they have like 35 some kids, 30 kids on their roster. So like an 8-player, if you watch the Dome next week, you're going to be like, okay, some schools literally have maybe 5, 6, 7 kids on their sideline. And then you'll look at Bishop Garrigan, and Bishop Garrigan has like 30 kids on their sideline. And it really pays off when you get late in the game and you're like, oh, well, we can just throw in these guys. Meanwhile, the other teams can't. So it kind of stinks that's how it is, but that's just how it is in 8-player, especially when Bishop Garrigan dropped down in recent years. But the Golden Bears, defending state champions, are rolling once again and are back at the Unidome. Gladbrook Rhinebeck defeats Don Bosco 34-33. This game was insane. Don Bosco won the first matchup on the first week of the season, 33-26. The Dons were denied this time. Drew Eilers, 176 yards, 3 touchdowns in the air, 2 touchdowns on the ground with 92 yards. Good for Gladbrook Rhinebeck, man. I mean, the defense has been a question mark. They give up 30, 32, and 33 in the playoffs. But the offense clearly has enough to keep everyone going. And Don Bosco, just kind of a surprise. I thought maybe the Dons would be able to take care of business again, but they get stopped on a 2-point conversion late. They get stopped on a 2-point conversion in overtime. So, yeah, good for Gladbrook Rhinebeck. Both these teams missed a PAT in overtime. Like, Gladbrook Rhinebeck, from my understanding, one of the teams scored, tried the field goal, and missed it. And then Don Bosco scored, or the other team scored in overtime. So they were just like, oh, we'll just kick the field goal. And then they missed it. That tells you all you need to know about 8-player. That kicking is just not the thing. Lennox defeats Montezuma 62-20. Lennox is very good. They are led by Gabe Funk. He had 19 carries, 145 yards, and 4 touchdowns. He also passed for 62 yards. They are very talented. They don't really give up a lot of points. They score a lot of points. Montezuma upset Bedford, really cool for the Braves, but it just didn't turn out. They trailed 14-7 at the end of the first quarter and then 35-7 at halftime. Montezuma's still young, man. Brady Bolton is a junior. Their running back, Brooks Stockman, is only a junior, so I expect Montezuma to be back, but Gabe Funk and Lennox are just a different breed. Shout out to the Tigers for a big win in that one. And then finally, Remsen St. Mary's defeats Audubon 61-20. Audubon came in undefeated, and it did not matter. Remsen was up 46-6 at halftime. Remsen is crazy, man. I mean, the fact that they just continue to churn out this good of team, considering their roster is like small. I mean, they are truly one of the teams that doesn't really have a lot of players. And hang on, let's count this, shall we? They have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21. They have 21 players. Remsen St. Mary's has 21 players. That is insane. I mean, I swear there are some basketball teams in the state of Iowa that don't even have 21 players. Or have more than 21 players. I don't get it, man. I don't get it. But it is truly insane what they can do. So Remsen St. Mary's defeats Audubon 61-20. Your Class 8 player looks like this. This will take place on Wednesday at 10 o'clock. Remsen St. Mary's will take on Bishop Garrigan. And then at 1 o'clock, Gladbrook Rhinebeck will face Lennox. All right, well, it's a longer podcast for you, but it was a long day, and I felt like I just needed to talk. So I appreciate everyone for listening. It has been a fun week, I can tell you that. Make sure to watch all the Dome games next week on the Iowa High School Sports Network. And, yeah, that will do it for me. Thank you, everyone, so much for listening. And I'm Blake Walker. I'll see you guys later.